It's 4 o'clock, and I want to tell everyone thank you for stopping by and joining us this evening for a wonderful conversation and dialogue with our special guest, Henry Noble, who is a thespian in the theater, film, television industry, as well as he's a musician. And he hails from originally Oregon, Portland, Oregon, that is. And Henry studied acting when he attended Laverne University, and he studied theater while he was at Laverne, which is here in Southern California. After that, he actually attended the Denver Theater Academy, or the Denver Center Theather Academy. And when he finished from there, next thing you know, Henry started doing his auditions, and he got cast in local productions as well as national productions and as well as regional productions. He was such a huge success and hit. He, not too long ago, debuted in August Wilson's play called Gem of the Ocean, where he played the lead, Citizen Barlow. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I sure do appreciate you, and I want to introduce you to my good friend, Henry Noble, who's not only just thespian, but he's also a really cool DJ as well. So he's known in the industry. He's one of the top DJs around, and I just want you all to give a round of applause and thank you for Henry Noble.
What's up,
so now, Henry, as I was reading your bio, I thought about your background and how did you start getting into acting, from moving from Oregon, Portland, Oregon, to eventually winding up in Hollywood? You know, how did you know that you had a desire to be an actor or to be a movie star?
Well, thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it. And anytime I can get the opportunity to just talk about my background and kind of what brought me here, my story, it's just much appreciated. But to answer your question, I think what really drew me, or what really got me into acting, was just at a young age. I always was really just a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was good with my parents would tell you that I was good at telling stories. And so along that line, I remember like we were all at a Chuck E. Cheese one time, and I was probably like, I could have been like 9. I think I was 9 years old. And, you know, my parents were eating, and we were all sitting at the table, and like the lady came up, and, you know, I was talking to her, and I gave her this like elaborate story, like my parents were archaeologists from Egypt and da 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 da. And so it was funny because everybody at the table got really quiet, and they didn't want to, you know, jump in on the joke, I guess, you know. But I just kept on talking, and I saw the power of kind of like stories that I told, and the lady just, I mean, she believed it, you know, although it was like, you know, it was made up. But I realized that just, you know, at a young age, you can have a lot of influence and power by doing so. And then later on, I think what really drew me was a teacher. You know, I was at school, and I was just kind of like just goofing around, and she handed me a monologue, and she said, go up on stage. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so I went up on stage, and I remember I read this monologue on stage. I'd never done it, but I read it, and something in it, I guess something in it had moved me, and the people who were watching me do it, they were like, wow, that was really good. And I think from that point on, I started to really realize the power of words and how you use them, and you know, telling stories and creating and bringing characters to life. And then from that point on, it was just like, it was something that I could not live without. It was like I had to do it. And so I had to learn, and I started to, you know, understand, like, you know, where do I go to, you know, take classes to learn, to develop this craft, to go to auditions. And in Portland, you know, at the time, there was a lot of theater. So I did a lot of work in like regional theaters and theaters there. And, you know, as I progressed through the ranks, you know, I went to drama school. you know, where it's like I started to learn more of the foundations and techniques and things like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, led to another. And when the opportunity came and I moved to California, it just, doors just kind of like opened up. It was almost like it was just, you know, meant to be.
So, so you said that when you were in school, about what grade were you in?
Gosh, I'm going way back. I think I was probably like about seventh, eighth grade.
Seventh. Also, you probably was like 12 or 13 and
Yeah,
you got the bug then.
yeah, yeah.
Well, how did at that time, your parents, did they think that, okay, this kid is going to be a theater buff, or were they like, well, yeah, it's a hobby now, but we don't see you doing this?
I think at that point, you know, your parents see it as kind of like a hobby, something fun that kids do
Mhm.
until they really, you know, see them progress through it. And I think that's just what happened with me. It was like, I loved it. My parents thought it was cool that I did it, you know, but never, I don't think never, but they, at that moment, you know, they weren't thinking, okay, this is something that he's going to be doing like long term and everything else,
Right.
you know,
Hmm.
but, they actually were very supportive of it, you know, because they were like, you know what, wow, this is something that it's gained his interest,
Hmm.
something that he loves to do, and they're seeing the benefits and what it's bringing to me. So they were
Hmm.
very encouraging. You know, at one point they were just like, you know what, we would rather you know, go to drama school,
Hmm.
do the acting because it's taking your focus. It's, you know, you're doing something
Hmm.
positive that you enjoy and you're seeing
Hmm.
the benefit from it. So they were very
Hmm.
supportive, which I love them for.
Right. So that's pretty cool. So then when you from 13 or 12 or 13 and then you went into high school and then did you go to a performing arts school or just a regular high school and you was taking theater classes while you were in high school?
Well, you know, high school was kind of a different time, you know, because I wasn't really, you know, I was trying to, you know, as a teenager, you know, then you're just trying to fit in and just trying to see
Right.
where
Hmm.
you're at. And theater and acting was not something that, you know, I'd be like, oh man, I'm in the theater. You know, it's like, no, you're not
Right.
playing
Right.
football, you're not playing basketball, you're not doing these things.
Right. That
Nah,
didn't mix well.
yeah, no, you didn't. It wasn't like that. You didn't talk about like, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So it was more just kind of like something that I kind of kept under wraps, you know, just
Okay.
so then I didn't really talk about. You know, I was like,
Um,
you know, I would go to these classes that were not in my high school, but the high school that I did go to, very prestigious high school in Portland. A lot of movies were filmed there, um,
okay.
and it was a really, really, really artistic, you know, place. But you know, I never really took advantage of it because I was, you know, kind of like afraid at one point to, you know, be
Hmm.
exposed as like, okay, hey, he's in the theater.
Hmm.
So
Right.
uh,
Right. And what was the name of the high school?
Ulysses S. Grant High School.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah, really
right.
good, really good. I mean, it's a good performing arts school. They actually did. They filmed a couple movies there. Like Mr. Holland's Opus was one. Actually, Terrence Howard, he had filmed there when he was like, I think he was probably in his 20s when he was doing
Really?
that movie. Yeah, Mr. Holland's Opus. It was Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember.
yeah, that was filmed at my high school. So that was the high school I
That
went
was
to.
at your, wow. Okay. So you were surrounded by it, but because you were trying to keep your image,
Exactly. Exactly.
the macho side of it, you didn't want your friends looking at you a certain kind of way. So you kept it under lock and key. And so when you went into college and what made you decide to come to LA? Was it strictly because of the fact that you wanted to get into the film
Well,
industry and go to
you know what?
school here?
It was one of those things where it's like I thought I was going to be in the theater, you know, because in Portland coming up, you have some amazing theaters. You have like the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. There's a lot of regional theaters and really
Right,
smaller
right,
theaters where you get the opportunity to really hone your craft and really be
right,
on stage. I always say that um, some of the best actors come from the stage because of
right,
the work it takes for you to um,
right. Hi,
develop
Ray.
and just understand
Right,
know what it is to like build a character and
right.
to bring it alive. So at one point I thought, you know, I was just going to be working in the theater,
Hmm.
but that turned out to be, you know, uh, somewhat, you know, I guess true, you could say, in some sense. But then I think LA was somewhat of a goal at that time. I wasn't really thinking
Mhm.
about it, but
Mhm.
you know, I was thinking like, you know, hey, I'm going to go do Broadway and going to do some other things. So when I eventually moved to California and started to really get into the industry, I realized that, you know, the film and TV industry was very similar to theater, like in New York.
Mhm.
Whereas in
Mhm.
LA, you have way more television and film
Mhm.
focus. Um,
Mhm.
but, uh, you know, in some of the other places, you don't. So.
Okay. So as you when you start, when you came to LA and then you finished school, and then did you get your first break in film after you finished school, or did it take a while for you to finally land something? How did that
You
go?
know what? A funny thing was, while a lot of my career had started, you know, in Portland, and
Hmm.
I really got like my first kind of start in my feet wet in kind of like I was doing infomercials and local commercials,
Okay.
and so I think I got my SAG card when I did Men of Honor, and that was like my first big break, being on a major motion picture, Robert De Niro, Cuba Gooding Jr. And that for me was just so exciting because it was like, you know, I was a young man. I finished high school and I'm, you know, still kind of figuring it out,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't have an
Uh-huh.
agent. I was actually
Uh-huh.
I was working as an extra,
Uh-huh.
and one of the late, I think her name was Emily Dunlap. She was like, "Hey, I want you to go in for this. They have like a role or something like that for this movie that they're going to be filming in town." And I was like, "Really?" You know, and I was so excited because you know, I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And
Right,
I
right,
remember I
right.
remember into the audition room and you know, not really familiar with the, you know, like the film audition, you know, the process, but I went in
Uh-huh.
and you know, I was I was truthful, I was honest,
Uh-huh.
and I
Uh-huh.
read, and I did, you know, I did all kind of crazy things in the room, and I was just like, oh my God, what was that about, you know?
But they
But
liked
I got
it.
I guess so, because like I got the part, and I was like, but it just was me telling the truth, you
Hello?
know, and just being honest
Uh-huh.
and being yeah, and just really
Uh-huh.
sticking to it. I got the part, and it was one of those
Mhm.
things where it was life changing, and
Oh, I bet.
it just made me want to do it even more. And working on
Right.
set and working with the actors and you know seeing
Mhm.
how the movies are all put together and just the amount of time and
Mhm.
you know my scene was when I filmed it, my scene was like the last scene of the day, so all this pressure was on me, and you know I had a little trailer, and you know you feel great, you know when that's
You
happening,
feel right,
you feel
absolutely.
good.
Even
Like
if
wow,
it's
I got a trailer, I got my name on
exactly.
there. I'm getting paid to do this. This is incredible,
Uh-huh.
you know. But the nerve wracking part was I was the last scene of the day,
Uh-huh.
and they were like, "Hey, we're ready for you on set." And so you know, they bring me out on set, and if you've ever worked on set, you realize that there are so many people uh, it takes to make a movie,
Yes,
like hundreds of people. So
absolutely.
it was my scene, and it was with Cuba Gooding Jr. and another actor, I forget his name. And I remember being out there, and we were outside, and it was so quiet. You could have heard a pin drop outside, and I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" So,
Were you nervous?
oh my god, yes, I was terrified because it was like you know you're thinking like this is your first like you know you want to do a good job. It just
Right,
means that
absolutely.
you want to do a good job, and
Absolutely.
I wanted to do a great job. So
Absolutely.
I remember my lines. I was excited, and I remember they were like, "Hey, you're gonna stand over there. He's gonna walk past you. You're gonna say your
Right.
line, and then then you guys are gonna go on the bus." And I'm like, "Okay, okay, I'm ready." They're like, "You ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready."
Right.
So there I am, and the guy he holds this like this boom mic, which it seemed like it was maybe like 75 feet long. It was so long, and I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh my god, look at this massive boom mic!" And then
Right.
action, you know, the
Uh-huh.
dad says speech, Cuba Gooding
Uh-huh.
Jr. Him are talking, and then he walks past me, and I go,
That's funny.
Nothing came out.
That's real.
Nothing came out. I was like, you know.
So how many takes did they have to do? So how many takes did they have to do for your scene?
You know what? It was a couple, but it was just like, you know what? This was like when you're starting out, you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. You're almost hitting yourself going, wow, this is actually happening. So it was one of those moments where I had to just click in and go, wow,
Right,
I'm
you
on
had to
set.
focus. Right.
I'm in here. Like this is happening.
Right.
So we did it like a couple more times. And then I started to settle in